Ons gaan nou gesels oor jou gesondheid. Want jy was baie siek geweest.
Yep,
Ja.
that's a way of putting it. But now I'm a lot better.
Verduidelik gou vir die luisteraars presies wat dit was.
In my father's family, the hereditary disease of polycystic kidney disease runs. You have a 50% chance of getting it. My father died when I was a student, waiting for a kidney transplant from the disease. And I, luck of the draw, got it. But I'm one of those people who just went on ahead with life and didn't do all the tests to find out. It was only when I was in my early 40s that eventually, through the reasons they picked up that I had the disease, at that point I had already below 30% kidney function. And slowly that deteriorates. And I had the transplant, very fortunate enough to get a donor and have the transplant about 10 months ago.
Want het jy nie die nier gekry nie, sou jy dood gegaan het.
Eventually you do. I mean, I was on dialysis with a pipe coming out of my chest for 10 months. I was very fortunate to be able to go into dialysis. One had, the medical backup to do it. Many people don't. The waiting lists for organ transplant in this country are scary. They're scary. So inevitably you can live on dialysis for a number of years, but it's not the way your body's designed to work. So organ damage occurs. Other organs kind of take strain. You're not a swimming pool. It's not like you're going to have the filter cleaned every 2 or 3 days. But it was a way of staying alive. Yeah.
Jy het ook gesê dis belangrik vir jou dat ons hieroor gesels, omdat jy mense wil bewus maak van hoe belangrik dit is om 'n orgaanskenker te word.
Exactly. One of the biggest problems in this country is the shortage of donors. We have waiting lists not just for kidneys across the board, whether it's heart or cornea or a number of organs. But unfortunately, mainly through education and also some cultural reasons, there's not a large donor population. I know that the Organ Donor Foundation does amazing work trying to raise awareness. But if everyone would just think about it and take into consideration that it's something that occurs after you die, it's not like you're going to use your body afterwards. And if it can make a difference to so many other people, it does absolutely no harm to just sign a bit of paper and you can potentially change so many people's lives. I was very fortunate. I was incredibly lucky to have a living donor, a friend, who after a number of attempts to find good matches, and I'd kind of given up and was planning to go and do the transplant overseas. The gallery did a number of auctions to raise money, to raise the funds to go and do the transplant in the United States. And then after that, there was another friend who just happened to be a closer match. I was incredibly lucky to get that transplant. Without it, and if I had not had the funds, it's, as I say, my father died waiting for a kidney, so I'm very aware of the reality of this.
Het dit 'n invloed gehad op jou werk? Moes seker gehad het.
I think it couldn't not, because it affected the way people reacted to you. And it does change the way that people react to you. Kind of all of a sudden you've got a time limit. You've sort of got an ending point. And I think there was a kind of cynical aspect that came into a lot of my work. There is a lot of fairly dark humor and cynicism that runs through my work. And I think that kind of permeated into the images that I was making. This sort of I think it was more about trying to control fear, because fear is the biggest damage. And I mean, I worked with motifs of crocodiles as being... Because for me, a crocodile really it's that slow reptilian fear that lies in the back of your brain and affects the way you approach your life. It makes you smaller. It makes you take less risk, which is something I resist and fight against. And it was about trying to fight against that sort of cold crocodile that just lay next to you, and it chilled your energy by always bringing that fear aspect in. And definitely that came out of my work. I mean, I have no boundaries between me and my sort of inner headspace just leaks out through my drawings. Since the transplant, I did a whole series of works earlier this year where I worked with all the etchings. I worked with some really large, sort of 2-meter etchings, and they don't always print perfectly. I mean, it's the nature of the process that you get. I mean, this pile of paper behind us is a pile of old damaged etchings, and normally you would turn them into ash for ash drawing. And then I started thinking of going back to damaged works and giving them second lives. So produced a whole series of works where I took imperfect etchings and reworked over them as drawings and gave them second chances. Because to a large extent, that's exactly what this is. It's like having extra time at the end of the game. And you have no idea how long. I mean, organ transplants can be very successful and they can also not last that long. But it's this little bit of extra time, and to make a difference out of extra time. Yes, and I think that that body of work that I've made earlier this year certainly picked up on that, taking the damaged and giving it a second life.
Met jou tweede kans op lewe, is daar dinge wat jy bitter graag nog wil doen?
There's works I need to make. Definitely there. There's not even a question on that. There's a lot of work I really want to do. I've tried to take this year relatively quietly. Well, I've done a lot less teaching than I would normally have done. One's immunity is quite suppressed because you're on immunosuppressants. So coming into contact with 30 joyful students, at least 2 of them are going to have something. It's just the nature of people. But there's projects that I want to do, and there's traveling I want to do. And there's riding. I'm someone who's a very keen rider, and going back and starting to ride again and go hiking, and it's a second chance. That's what an organ donor offers, the chance of an extension on your life.